This is roll call. The Senate Secretary will call the roll.
Adams. Here. Anthem. Berndt. Bierke. Blaylock. Burtonshaw. Carlson. Cook. Den Hartog. Foreman. Galloway. Grow. Guthrie. Harris. Hart. Kaiser. Cole. Lakey. Lenny. Lent. Nichols. Okonowitz. Ricks. Ruchte. Semmelroth. Shippey. Taylor. Taves. Van Orden. Wardingle-King. Wintrow. Wohler. Woodward. Cito. Seiderveld. Anthem. Ruchte.
The roll call shows 33 senators present with 2 absent excused. A quorum is present and the Senate is ready for business. The Senate will now advance to the second order of business, prayer and pledge of allegiance. Today we will be led in prayer by our chaplain, Doug Armstrong, and then led in the pledge of allegiance by our Senate page, Emma Madrano. Will the guests in the gallery please stand?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, today's the last Friday of the 3rd month, and you're seeing the end game of the session in full view. And the new senators are seeing the end of March for the first time. It's different than the beginning of the first week when you were all settling in. And in some ways, it may remind you of the dialogue between Alice and the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland. Alice said to the cat, "But I don't want to go among the mad people." "Oh, you can't help that," said the cat. "We're all mad here. I'm mad, you're mad." Alice replied, "How do you know that I'm mad?" "You must be," said the cat, "or you wouldn't have come here." Now, there are some similarities to the legislative session, but no, you are not mad. But you are unique, and you're unduplicated, and your constituents are unique, and your districts are unique. And the Cheshire Cat's words encourage us to embrace our uniqueness and not be afraid to be different. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for creating all 35 senators uniquely in your image. And in a world that pressures conformity, help our Senate to embrace their individuality while standing firm for your truth and embracing teamwork toward the end goal. Give them courage to uphold righteousness, wisdom to discern truth, and love for one another. And may they be blessed this weekend and find joy with their loved ones. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Emma. The Senate will now advance to the third order of business, reading and correction of the journal. The Senate's at the third order.
March 28, 2025. The Judiciary and Rules Committee reports that the Senate Journal of the proceedings of March 27, 2025 was read and approved as corrected. Lakey, Chairman.
The corrected journal will be filed in the office of the Secretary.
There is no further business in the third order, Mr. President.
The Senate will then advance to the fourth order of business, reading of communications. The Senate's at the fourth order.
March 28, 2025. Dear President Pro Tempore, I have the honor to inform you that pursuant to Title 67-412, I have designated Megan Wohler of Boise, Idaho, to continue serving as a qualified substitute for Legislative District 16, Ada County, State of Idaho. This appointment shall continue through Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. Sincerely, Senator Ali Rabi, District 16.
The correspondence will be filed in the office of the Senate Secretary.
March 28, 2025. Dear President Pro Tempore, I have the honor to inform you that pursuant to Title 67-412, I have designated Jake Coho of Nampa, Idaho, as a qualified substitute for Legislative District 13, Canyon County, State of Idaho. This appointment is effective Monday, March 31st, 2025, and will continue until Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. Sincerely, Senator Brian Lenny, District 13.
Upon Mr. Coho's arrival Monday, He will receive the oath of office, and the correspondence will be filed in the office of the Secretary.
Mr. President.
Senator Den Hartog.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate advance to the ninth order of business.
Without objection, the Senate will advance to the ninth order of business. Consideration of messages from the House of Representatives. The Senate's at the ninth order. Senator Anthony, you'll be recognized as present at this order of business.
March 27, 2025. Mr. President, I transmit here with House Bill 445 and 457, which have passed the House. McGinnis, Chief Clerk.
House Bills 445 and 457 will be referred to the 11th order of business for introduction.
March 27, 2025. Mr. President, I return here with Senate Bills 1167, 1170, 1183, 1140 as amended, 1144, and Senate Bill 1159, which have passed the House. McGinnis, Chief Clerk.
Senate Bills 1167, 1170, 1183, 1140 as amended, 1144, and 1159 will all be referred to the Judiciary and Rules Committee for enrolling.
Mr. President.
Senator Den Hartog.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate advance to the 11th order of business.
Without objection, the Senate will
I ask the Senate go at ease.
The Senate go at ease.
Mr. President,
Senator Burton Shaw.
just for an announcement, one of our pages will have a birthday on Sunday, Lucy Barton. She's been an active part of the Resource Committee. We appreciate who she is. Lucy, if you would stand up. You wish her a happy birthday today.
Happy birthday. While we're at ease, I have some guests in the gallery. With Luke and Chandra Wilhite, are you still up there? They're here with their daughters, Paige and Hadley. We welcome them to the gallery. The Senate will be in order.
Mr. President, I withdraw my unanimous consent request to go to the 11th order of business, but I will ask unanimous consent that the Senate return to the 6th order of business.
You've heard the request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the Senate will return to the 6th order of business. Reports of standing committees. The Senate's at the 6th order.
March 28, 2025. The Judiciary and Rules Committee reports that Senate Bills 1167, 1170, 1183, 1140 as amended, 1144, and Senate Bill 1159 have been correctly enrolled. Lakey, Chairman.
Having been reported enrolled, Senate Bills 1167, 1170, 1183, 1140 as amended, 1144, and 1159 will be signed by the President and transmitted to the House of Representatives for the signature of the Speaker.
March 27, 2025. The Judiciary and Rules Committee reports that enrolled Senate Concurrent Resolution 112 was delivered to the Office of the Secretary of State at 3:21 p.m. March 27, 2025. Lakey, Chairman.
That report will be filed in the Office of the Secretary.
March 27, 2025. The Judiciary and Rules Committee reports that enrolled Senate Bills 1141 as amended, 1133 as amended, 1175, 1177, and Senate Bill 1178 were delivered to the Office of the Governor at 3:24 p.m. March 27, 2025. Lakey, Chairman.
That report will be filed in the Office of the Senate Secretary.
Mr. President.
Senator Den Hartog.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate advance to the 11th order of business.
Without objection, the Senate will advance to the 11th order of business, introduction, first reading, and reference of bills. The Senate's at the 11th order.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that all bills on first reading be read by number, author, and title only, and the journal show they've been read at length.
Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. The Senate Secretary may begin to read.
In the Senate, Senate Bill 1203 by Finance Committee, an act relating to the appropriation to the Department of Health and Welfare, appropriating additional monies to the Department of Health and Welfare for the independent councils for fiscal year 2026. In the Senate, Senate Bill 1204 by Finance Committee, an act relating to the appropriation to the Executive Office of the Governor, appropriating additional monies to the Executive Office of the Governor for fiscal year 2026. In the Senate, Senate Bill 1205 by Finance Committee, an act relating to funding of the Idaho Transportation Department, appropriating additional monies to the Idaho Transportation Department for fiscal year 2026.
Senate Bills 1203, 1204, and 1205 will be referred to the Judiciary and Rules Committee for printing.
In the House of Representatives, House Bill 445 by Appropriations Committee, an act relating to the appropriation to the Department of Water Resources, appropriating additional monies to the Department of Water Resources for fiscal year 2026. In the House of Representatives, House Bill 457 by Revenue and Taxation Committee, an act relating to taxation to provide that animal adoption and rescue fees are not subject to sales and use tax.
House Bill 445 will be referred to the Finance Committee, and House Bill 457 will be referred to the Local Government and Taxation Committee.
There is no further business in the 11th order, Mr. President.
Then the Senate will advance to the 12th order of business, second reading of bills. The Senate's at the 12th order.
Mr. President.
Senator Den Hartog.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that all bills on second reading be read by number and author only, and the journal show they've been read at length.
Hearing no objection, it is so ordered.
In the House of Representatives, House Bill 444 by Appropriations Committee. In the House of Representatives, House Bill 448 by Appropriations Committee. In the House of Representatives, House Bill 450 by Appropriations Committee. In the House of Representatives, House Bill 451 by Appropriations Committee. In the House of Representatives, House Bill 452 by Appropriations Committee. In the House of Representatives, House Bill 453 by Appropriations Committee. In the House of Representatives, House Bill 454 by Appropriations Committee. In the Senate, Senate Bill 1194 by Finance Committee. In the Senate, Senate Bill 1195 by Finance Committee. In the Senate, Senate Bill 1196 by Finance Committee. In the Senate, Senate Bill 1197 by Finance Committee. In the Senate, Senate Bill 1200 by Finance Committee. In the Senate, Senate Bill 1201 by Finance Committee. In the Senate, Senate Bill 1202 by Finance Committee. In the House of Representatives, House Bill 6 as amended in the Senate by Judiciary, Rules, and Administration Committee. In the House of Representatives, House Bill 180 as amended in the Senate by Local Government Committee. In the House of Representatives, House Bill 253 as amended in the Senate by State Affairs Committee. In the House of Representatives, House Bill 339 as amended in the Senate by State Affairs Committee. In the Senate, Senate Bill 1162 as amended by Judiciary and Rules Committee.
House Bills 444, 448, 450, 451, 452, 453, 454, Senate Bills 1194 and 1195, Senate Bills 1196, 1197, 1200, 1201, 1202, House Bill 6 is amended in the Senate, House Bill 180 is amended in the Senate, House Bill 253 is amended in the Senate, House Bill 339 is amended in the Senate, and Senate Bill 1162 as amended will all be referred to the 13th order of business for the third reading.
There is no further business in the 12th order, Mr. President.
The Senate will then advance to the 13th order of business, third reading of bills. The Senate is at the 13th order.
Mr. President, for a Senate privilege.
Senator Den Hartog, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, just for the plan for the day, we are going to take up the bills in the order in which they appear in third reading. If we successfully get through our Senate finance appropriations that are in third reading, we may consider going back and taking up the Senate finance bills that are in second reading. So we'll see how the morning on the floor goes, but be prepared and take a look at those as we're working our way through the third reading. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. The Senate will have before it for final consideration House Bill number 25. The Senate Secretary will read the bill.
In the House of Representatives, House Bill 25 by Revenue and Taxation Committee, an act relating to sales tax distribution.
Mr. President.
Senator Okonowitz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that further reading of House Bill 25 be dispensed with and that the journal show it's been read the third time at length, section by section, and placed before the Senate for final consideration.
Is there an objection? Hearing none. Senator, you have the floor to open the debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, this bill deals with TECM, for short. It's the Transportation Expansion Congestion Mitigation Fund that was created 6 or 7 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, something to that effect. What it does is it gently, or not gently, but slightly increases the total amount possible that can go into that. These funds flow through sales tax revenues. As you know, our transportation needs have continued to increase. This will also increase the the cap for local entities on their a portion of these funds as they come through. It does that increase over a 3-year period, and then it stays, at that point, it'll stay where it leaves off on the 3-year period. So, Mr. President, with that, debate's open.
Thank you. Is there further debate? Hearing none, Senator Okonowicz, you have the floor to close the debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Debate's closed.
Debate is closed. The question before the Senate is, shall House Bill number 25 pass the Senate? The Senate Secretary will call the roll.
Adams. Anthony. Berndt. Bierke. Blaylock. Burtonshaw. Carlson. Cook. Den Hartog. Foreman. Galloway. Grow. Guthrie. Harris. Hart. Kaiser. Cole. Lakey. Lenny. Lent. Nichols. Okonowitz. Ricks. Ruckte. Samaroff. Shippey. Taylor. Taves. Van Orden. Wardingle-King. Wintrow. Wooler. Woodward. Cito. Seiderveld. Ruckte.
The vote count shows 34 in favor with 1 absent. A majority having voted in the affirmative, House Bill number 25 has passed the Senate. Hearing no correction of title, the title is approved, and the bill will be returned to the House of Representatives.
Mr. President.
Senator Den Hartog.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that Senate Bill 1080 hold its place on the calendar for one legislative day.
Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. The Senate will now have before for final consideration Senate Bill 1179. The Senate Secretary will read the bill.
In the Senate, Senate Bill 1179 by Judiciary and Rules Committee, an act relating to health and safety, to revise provisions regarding exemptions, declaring emergency and providing an effective date, be it enacted by the legislature of the state of Idaho. Section 1, that Section 39-912 Idaho Code, as amended in Section 13 of Senate Bill 10.
Senator Blaylock.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that further reading of Senate Bill 1179 be dispensed with, and the journal show that it has been read a third time at length, section by section, and placed before the Senate for final consideration.
Hearing no objection, Senator, you have the floor to open the debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, Senate Bill 1179 is a trailer bill to Senate Bill 1014, which we heard earlier this session and has now been signed into law. To briefly refresh your memory, that bill moved existing newborn screening rules into Idaho Code. Currently, the only exemption in that rule and now in code available is to opt out of these screenings for religious reasons. So Senate Bill 1179 broadens that exemption language by adding philosophical, medical, and other as valid grounds to opt out. With that, debate is open.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President,
Senator Lenny,
to debate the bill.
go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a good example of, we've talked on the floor a few times about bills that move rules into statute. Well, this is a great example of Senate Bill 1014 moved these exemption rules into statute. And now with this bill, Senate Bill 1179, we're taking that statute and strengthening the vaccine exemption. So this is an example of that whole process and work, and for a reason why we do that. Mr. President, in 2019, the state of Maine removed all of their vaccine exemptions, moral, religious, philosophical, and they upheld that in a 2020 election. So the state of Maine is going backwards on this issue. There are no vaccine exemptions for schools. So this is a good thing that strengthens, parental choice, health freedom, all those things. It's a great bill. I commend the senator from 11 for bringing it forward, and I urge everybody's support. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further debate? Senator Taves.
Thank you, Mr. President. To debate the bill.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, this is a great improvement, and I appreciate the sponsor for bringing it. I heard a lot from my constituents that they were very concerned about the lack of exemptions for these procedures for infants. And so I see this as a great step forward as far as giving people the options, the parental rights really that they deserve and that they should have. So I support this legislation. Thank you.
Is there further debate?
Mr.
Senator
President.
Winthrop.
Thank you, Mr. President. To begrudgingly speak in favor of the bill.
Wow. You have the floor, Senator.
I have to say I was really torn on this bill. I talked to the bill sponsor, people who had interest in this area. I mean, we had a lot of discussion. I think what I kept hearing was the concern for some parents, including the bill sponsor. What was indicated was, hey, I got a lot of counseling on the importance of screening, what it could determine, what it would show. There were some concerns about, eye drops being put into eyes and a vitamin K. I think that was it. Was it vitamin K shot? And so that's where the discussion went. And so obviously I think we should all be very concerned about children's health and safety. It didn't sound like the heel prick was as big a concern for folks because it was just a little blood spot, and then we could see the array of issues the child might have, and then the parent can make choices about their health care and intervene quickly if needed, especially in rare disease. Like if we can identify something and really quickly, we might be able to treat and save the life of a child. In fact, a couple sessions ago, I worked with a mother who lost her baby. She came and talked in our committee about it, and we added a screening process to the whole screen. So I do think this is a complicated issue. I know some people it's kind of black and white, but in the end, I think the bill sponsor and folks convinced me that this would be okay to do, and so I'm going to vote in favor.
Is there further debate? Hearing none. Senator Shippey.
Thank you, Mr. President. To debate in favor of the bill.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really appreciate Senator from 11 bringing this. This was there were a lot of concerns after we had passed an earlier piece of legislation, and this addresses that. I think we have to remind ourselves that parents love their children and have their best interests in mind way more than the state of Idaho, and barring obviously some rare cases. So this strikes that really good balance of just making sure that we as the state of Idaho protect parental rights and authority and don't look at parents as suspect and as seeing them as an obstacle between us and these children that do need good health and to be taken care of. But God has given parents to these children to do that, to be the primary ones to do that. So I very much appreciate this legislation and would urge your aye vote.
Is there further debate? Hearing none. Senator Blaylock, you're recognized to close the debate.
Thank you, Mr. President, and all the senators that spoke in favor. I appreciate that. I do believe that we're just putting into code what I think is already in practice today, respecting the parent in the decision of these screenings and treatments that happen to their newborn. So thank you again, and with that, debate's closed.
Debate is closed. The question before the Senate is, shall Senate Bill 1179 pass the Senate? The Secretary will call the roll.
Adams. Anthony. Berndt. Bierke. Blaylock. Burtenshaw. Carlson. Cook. Den Hartog. Foreman. Galloway. Grove. Guthrie. Harris. Hart. Kaiser. Cole. Blakey. Lenny. Blend. Nichols. Okonowitz. Ricks. Rugty. Semiroff. Shippey. Taylor. Taves. Van Orden. Bordengo-King. Winthrop. Bowler. Woodward. Zito. Seiderveld. Anthon. Ruckte. Taylor. Bordengo-King. Bowler.
The vote count shows 31 in favor with 3 against and 1 absent. A majority having voted in the affirmative, Senate Bill 1179 has passed the Senate. Hearing no correction to title, the title is approved and the bill will be transmitted to the House. The Senate will now have before it for final consideration Senate Bill 1187. The Secretary will read the bill.
In the Senate, Senate Bill 1187 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to agricultural protection areas.
Mr. President.
Senator Adams.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that further reading of Senate Bill 1187 be dispensed with, and the Journal show it has been read a third time at length, section by section, and placed before the Senate for final consideration.
Hearing no objection, Senator Adams, you have the floor to open the debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 1187 is a trailer bill to Senate Bill 1133, which this body passed earlier this year regarding agricultural protection areas. In Senate Bill 1133, there was a conflict in the process of establishing an agricultural protection area, which in the original implementation of the protection areas required administrative approval and a process to add new parcels to an existing. They were in conflict with each other. Senate Bill 1187 aligns the process for adding parcels to an existing agricultural protection area by allowing either the board of the county commissioners or, if appointed, a planning and zoning administrator or any other designated official to approve or modify the APA. The Idaho Association of Counties and the Farm Bureau both support this, and I have not seen any opposition up till now. Debate is open.
Is there further debate? Hearing none. Senator Adams, you're recognized to close the debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Debate is closed.
Debate is closed. The question before the Senate is, shall Senate Bill 1187 pass the Senate? Senator Harris.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent. The roll call vote used for the passage of House Bill 25 be now used for the passage of Senate Bill 1187.
You've heard the request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the roll call, the vote count shows 34 in favor with 1 absent. A majority having voted in the affirmative, Senate Bill 1187 has passed the Senate. Hearing no correction to title, the title is approved and the bill will be transmitted to the House of Representatives. The Senate will now have before it for final consideration Senate Bill 1190. The Secretary will read the bill.
In the Senate, Senate Bill 1190 by Finance Committee, an act relating to appropriations for the Public Utilities Commission, Industrial Commission, and State Tax.
Senator Woodward.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that further reading of Senate Bill 1190 be dispensed with, and the Journal show it has been read the third time at length, section by section, and placed before the Senate for final consideration.
Hearing no objection, Senator, you're recognized to open debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 1190 is funding for a policy decision made in Senate Bill 1148 regarding the pay for the commissioners of the Industrial Commission, the Tax Commission, and the Public Utilities Commission. With that, Mr. President, debate is open.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, Senator Woodward, you have the floor to close the debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Debate is closed.
Debate is closed. The question before the Senate. Before we place the question, we're going to go at ease. It clarifies some questions on a pair. So. We good? penmanship strikes again.
I have a huge stack. Okay.
Plus, hey, Rudke's back. So we're at ease, Senator. Give us one vote so we can roll. The Senate will be in order. Prior to going to these, we're about to vote in the 13th order on Senate Bill 1190. The debate is closed, and the question is, shall Senate Bill 1190 pass? The Senate Secretary will call the roll.
Adams, Anthony, Berndt, Bierke, Blaylock, Burtonshaw, Carlson, Cook, Den Hartog, Foreman, Galloway, Grow, Guthrie, Harris, Hart, Kaiser, Cole, Lakey, Lenny, Lent, Nichols, Okonowitz, Ricks, Ruckty, Seminoff, Shippey, Taylor, Taves, Van Orden, Bordingle-King, Wintrow, Bowler, Woodward, Cito, Seiderveld, Adams, Anthony, Berndt,
Nay.
Bierke, Kaiser, Cole, Lenny, Shippey,
Yeah.
The vote count
Mr. President?
shows-
How did I
Senator
vote?
Zeiderfeld? Excuse me?
How did I vote?
Senator Zeiderfeld, you voted aye.
Can I change that to a no, please?
You may. Senator Zeiderfeld goes from yes to no. The vote count shows 21 in favor with 14 against, a majority having voted in the affirmative. Senate Bill 1190 has passed the Senate. Hearing no correction to title, the title is approved and the bill be transmitted to this House of Representatives. The Senate will now have before it for final consideration Senate Bill 1191. The Senate Secretary will read the bill.
In the Senate, Senate Bill 1191 by Finance Committee, an act relating to the appropriation to the Office of Energy and Mineral Resources, appropriating additional monies to the office.
President.
Senator Woodward.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that further reading of Senate Bill 1191 be dispensed with. The journal show has been read the third time at length, section by section, and placed before the Senate for final consideration.
Without objection, Senator Woodward, you have the floor to open debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 1191 is an improvement to the base budget for the Office of Energy and Mineral Resources. It is a request for $481,000, $311,000 of that in ongoing, $170,000 one time. The purpose of this, and I should say with one additional full-time employee, the purpose of the request is to facilitate business in the state of Idaho. We know that with our laws, particularly federal laws in place that we sometimes administer, that it can be difficult to permit new companies, new operations, particularly mining or other large developments. The intention here is to provide a single point of contact for business and someone who will facilitate the permitting process here to move things along. You can see a couple of letters showing support for this from mining companies along with Idaho National Laboratory. Mr. President, with that, debate is open.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President,
Senator Ward Engelking,
debate against the bill.
you have the floor.
Thank you. While I'm pleased with what's in the bill, I'm very disappointed to see that $25 million in pass-through grants was removed from this budget. These grants were from the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and the grants would have provided seniors, veterans, disabled with an opportunity to make their homes more energy efficient, and so that they'd be able to stay in their homes and pay their heat bills. And that money is not going back to the Treasury. It's going to go to our surrounding states that are willing to take the money. I checked with our senators, and I read the bill, the code, the U.S. code, and this is money. These are Idaho tax dollars that are going to go to other states, and it's just not right. Thank you.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President,
Senator Lenny,
to debate the bill.
you have the floor, Senator.
Unlike the senator from District 18, I'm glad we said no to the $24.5 million federal grant, because as we all know, with federal money comes federal chains. I think, though, this budget is another example of we're expanding instead of prioritizing efficiency.
AR-15, eh?
I mean, we're creating a brand new council, the Speed Council. It sounds really cool, but we're spending almost $500,000 in hiring a new person on this. This is definitely an enhancement budget. It's not needed or necessary, so I'm going to be a no vote on this, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is there further debate?
Mr. President,
Senator Adams.
would the sponsor yield to a question?
Senator Woodward, will you yield to a question?
Mr. President, I will yield.
Senator Woodward yields.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, this fund has primarily been federal and dedicated funds in the past, and this Speed Council is now using general funds. Were there no dedicated funds that were compliant or able to provide the $481,000 to facilitate the Speed Council?
Senator Woodward.
Mr. President, that is correct. That's why we're shifting to general fund request.
Okay. Is there further debate?
Mr. President,
Senator Nichols.
debate the bill.
You have the floor.
Thank you. My concern on this is that currently we have no statutory obligation to fund this. And I think we need to keep it that way. I think there are other ways that we can go about with this without having to create new government. And so I will be a no vote on this.
Is there further debate? Hearing none. Senator Woodward, you recognize to close the debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. As acknowledged, this is a policy debate and policy decision, and we have the opportunity to try and stay out of the way of business in Idaho, or we can just let them struggle along for a little longer. That debate is closed.
Debate is closed. The question before us is, shall Senate Bill 1191 pass the Senate? The Senate Secretary will call the roll.
Adams, Anthon, Berndt, Bierke, Blaylock, Burtonshaw, Carlson, Cook, Tin Hartog, Foreman, Galloway, Grow, Guthrie, Harris, Hart, Kaiser, Cole, Lakey, Lenny, Lent, Nichols, Okonowitz, Ricks, Ructi, Semaroff, Shippey, Taylor, Taves, Van Orden, King, Wintrow, Bowler, Woodward, Cito, Seiderfeld, Adams, Berndt, Bierke.
Mr. President.
60 seconds to explain your vote, Senator.
It's interesting, we talk a lot in here about how we support constituents. I'm seeing the way this particular budget bill is going, and I just want to let everybody know that I've received a lot of email of people that are a little upset about the fact that some of their energy efficiency programs that they're relying on are not going to be coming to them. And those are the people that I represent. And for that, I will be voting no.
Senator Bierke votes no.
Jen Hartog, Harris, Okonowitz, Ructi, Semaroff, Shippey, Taylor, Wintrow, Bowler,
The vote count shows 9 in favor with 26 against. House or Senate Bill 1191 has failed to pass the Senate and will be retained in the office of the Senate Secretary. The Senate will now have before for final consideration Senate Bill 1192. The Secretary will read the bill.
In the Senate, Senate Bill 1192 by Finance Committee, an act relating to funding of the State Liquor Division, appropriating additional monies to the State Liquor Division for fiscal year 2026, declaring an emergency.
Mr. President.
Senator Carlson.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that further reading of Senate Bill 1192 be dispensed with and the journals show it has been read the third time at length, section by section, and placed before the Senate for final consideration.
Hearing no objection, Senator, you have the floor to begin the debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the liquor bill I have been given the privilege of presenting on the floor today. Senate Bill 1192 is the enhancement appropriation for the State Liquor Division. The Idaho State Liquor Division holds a statutory duty to provide over the importation, distribution, sale, and consumption of distilled spirits, curtail intemperate use of beverage alcohol, and responsibility optimize the net revenues to the citizens of Idaho. All liquor appropriations derive from the agency's own revenues. The division consistently maintains a 36 to 30% profit margin, with all profits distributed back to the state. In FY 2024, those distributions reached $118.3 million, largely going to cities, counties, courts, and the general fund. This appropriation does not provide for $1,077,300 additionally requested by the division. Enhancements not provided include an electronic document system and network modernization project. The enhancement appropriation additionally reduces the agency's requested appropriation to update its website to meet ADA guidelines by $25,000 and reduces the agency's request for replacement items by $775,300 through the removal of all retail store replacement items. This bill provides $644,400 in dedicated fund appropriations. I'm going to repeat that. This bill provides $644,400 in dedicated fund appropriations, not general fund. The first enhancement $57,400 is ongoing. Raises part-time retail staff wages from $15 an hour to $15.45 per hour. Part-time staff do not receive annual CEC adjustments, and this increase aims to reduce the high turnover rate, currently around 80%. The second enhancement, $72,000 ongoing, will cover the cost of shrink wrap. Seems like a lot of money, I know. In July, the division entered a new freight contract requiring all pallets to be shrink wrapped before loading. The third enhancement, that $75,000 one time, is included to update the Idaho State Liquor Division website to meet web content accessibility guidelines and ensure compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. This agency is currently out of compliance, posing a litigation risk. The estimated cost is based on a contractor's assessment, and the division will issue an RFP to bid out the work. The replacement items, $205,000, are for motorized equipment and vehicles. This includes $95,000 for motorized equipment used daily in its warehouse to transport orders, and $110,000 for the replacement of 2 fleet vehicles with modifications to secure cargo. With that, Mr. President, debate is open.
Is there further debate? Senator Zito,
Debate the bill.
you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, this budget is an increase of 2.1% above the maintenance budget. And I would also like to point out that where it's incumbent upon the legislature to legislate temperance and morality, in my opinion, we shouldn't even have a website where we encourage people to use more alcohol, run raffles for alcohol, and games to encourage alcohol consumption. I think it would be better if we just taxed it and sold it rather than to promote it. So I'm going to vote no on this budget.
Is there further debate?
Would this, Mr. President, would the sponsor yield to a question?
Sarah Carlson, will you yield to a question?
Yes.
Sarah Carlson yields through the chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, I'm looking at the previous Liquors Division budget that wasn't able to pass this floor, and this one, and I'm looking at Table 1, and in the new budget that you're carrying today, there is a line item for network switches and firewall devices, and it says 0. But in the previous budget, that line item was not included at all. Can you give some context as to why that's in here now?
Sarah Carlson.
Mr. President, network switches and firewall devices are not in there currently. Is that the question?
Sarah Adams, would you care to clarify your question?
I would like to try, Mr. President. So in the current budget, you are correct. There are no, there is no financial request for network switches and firewall devices. Those are zeros across the board in Table 1, number 3. In the previous bill that was killed, the Liquor Division bill before, that line item was not in Table 1 at all, zeros or anything else. I guess I'm just wondering why it's listing an item or a request, a line item request in the new budget as a 0. I don't know if that...
Mr. President, I ask the Senate go at ease.
Thank you.
Senate will be at ease.
You're watching the Idaho Senate. Hardware and closed captioning for Idaho in Session is provided by the Idaho Legislature and Idaho Legislative Services Office. Additional funding is provided by the Idaho Public Television Endowment. You're watching the Idaho Senate. Hardware and closed captioning for Idaho in Session is provided by the Idaho Legislature.
The Senate will be in order. Prior to going to these, we were debating Senate Bill 1192. Debate is open. Senator Adams, you had the floor as you were asking questions.
Mr. President, I will allow the sponsor to address the questions I was asking in her closing.
Thank you. Is there further debate? Hearing none, Senator Carlson, you have the floor to close the debate.
Mr. President, the answer to the question of from the senator from District 12 is in the previous bill draft, that line item was somehow omitted, so it was like a drafting error.
Debated. So is debate closed? Do you wish to continue your closing debate? You have the floor, Senator.
This budget was previously 1.5 million, and now it's down to 644,400. We have reduced it. I feel like it's a good budget. This is also, remember, not money coming from the general fund. This is a division, the Idaho State Liquor Division funds itself. With that, debate is closed.
Debate is closed. The question before the Senate is, shall Senate Bill 1192 pass the Senate? The Secretary will call the roll.
Adams, Anthon, Berndt, Bierke, Blaylock, Burtonshaw, Carlson, Cook, Den Hartog, Foreman, Galloway, Grow, Guthrie, Harris, Hart, Kaiser, Cole, Lakey, Lenny, Lent, Nichols, Okonowitz, Ricks, Ruckty, Semorov, Shippey, Taylor, Taves, Van Orden, Wardingle King, Wintrow, Wooler, Woodward, Cito, Seiderveld, Bierke.
60 seconds, Senator Bierke.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm feeling a sense of where this budget might go. But I do have to say that we have a new director for the liquor division. And, we pretty much gutted his budget. And we've hamstrung him on things like replacement items for simple things like updating the shelves in the stores so we don't lose product, which eventually costs money. For that, I can't support this budget. I'm a nay.
Senator Bierke votes no.
Burtonshaw, Galloway, Grow, Kaiser, Lenny.
Mr. President, 60 seconds.
60 seconds, Senator.
I'm pleased that this budget went from 1.5 million to 644,000. I think it is you know, maybe I should put in an RFP for this $75,000 up for grabs for the website. Probably wouldn't be allowed to, but I still think there's some things we can knock down, but we did kill the original budget. I mean, and we said, go make it smaller. So to the senator from Five's point, they made it much smaller. And I personally would feel like a hypocrite for debating against it. Then they did what I said, and I come back and vote against it. So I'm going to be a yes on this, Mr. President.
Senator Lenny votes aye.
Land? Woodward?
Sarah Galloway, how do you vote on Senate Bill 1192?
Mr. President.
Senator Grow.
Could I change my vote? How did I vote?
Senator Grow, you voted aye.
Thank you. Could I change my vote to nay, please? Let me explain. Can I explain? Maybe I can't explain.
You have 60 seconds.
Thank you, sir. I'm consistently no on alcohol, tobacco, lottery. But this budget has been worked over and cut considerably. And I think it's a disservice to have a budget go down if we're going to be respecting what JFAC does. So I respect the work group. I respect what they've done. But if my vote is not necessary to pass this thing, I would change it to a nay, but hope nobody else changes to a nay. If they do, then we got a problem.
Senator Grow changes his yes vote to no. Senator Bierke?
Mr. President, how did I vote?
Senator, I believe you voted, I know you voted no.
Mr. President, I'd like to change my vote to yay, or aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Senator Bierke goes from no to yes. The corrected vote count shows 21 in favor with 13. That can't be right. 21, 13, 2. 21, 13, 1. Yeah. All right, the corrected vote count shows 21 in favor with 13 against and 1 absent. A majority having voted in the affirmative, Senate Bill 1192 is passed the Senate. Hearing no correction to title, the title is approved and the bill will be transmitted to the House of Representatives. The Senate will now have before for final consideration Senate Bill 1193. The Senate Secretary will read the bill.
In the Senate, Senate Bill 1193 by Finance Committee, an act relating to the appropriation to the Office of Information Technology Services, appropriating additional monies to the Office of Information Technology Services.
Mr. President.
Senator Bierke.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that further reading of Senate Bill 1193 be dispensed with, and the Journal show it has been read a third time at length, section by section, and placed before the Senate for final consideration.
Is there an objection? Hearing none, Senator, you have the floor to begin the debate.
Thank you, Mr. President and senators. Senate Bill 1193 appropriates an additional $11,134,000 to the Office of Information Technology Services for fiscal year 2026 enhancements. This budget was cut by $4.2 million from the governor's budget. Only 12.9% of the total increase is ongoing, $4,481,400. The agency is the central IT management and support agency for most executive branch agencies. The agency coordinates statewide IT policies, programs, telecommunications, and cybersecurity under the direction of the Information Technology Authority Group. Over the last few years, the agency has gone through the Idaho IT Modernization Initiative, which consolidates various agency information technology focused staff into one state agency. And with that, debate is open.
Is there further debate? Senator Adams.
I know he's sitting right next to me, but would the sponsor yield to a public question?
Senator Bierke, will you yield to a question? Senator yields.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator, where is the Department of Information Technology Service? Where are they located currently?
Senator Bierke.
Mr. President, Senator, where are they located? In the building? Where are they located?
Through the chair.
State? Where are they located? What is it?
Senator Adams, please clarify your question.
Mr. President, Senator, there's a line item in here to fund some movements to the Shinden campus. And I just want to make sure we're not duplicating another past situation where we funded a move and then changed our mind. So that's why I'm asking.
Mr. President, we're not funding a move and changing our mind, to answer the question.
Mr. President,
Senator Groh.
I was on the phone getting more information.
You have the floor to debate.
Thank you, sir. So I'm not sure what he said, but he may have said the same thing. But they're currently in 13, to answer the senator's question, 13 different locations on the Chinden campus. They're trying to consolidate to one location, which is what we're trying to do. Sometimes it's a little goofy out there because we've got a little bit of space here, a little bit of space there, and some people are spread, but here we have some space that will be ready for them to be all in one place. That's what's happening.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President.
Senator Cole.
Debate the bill.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this budget is 31% over maintenance, and then ongoing is going to be 12. That's far and above my pledge to my constituents to be fiscally responsible. So I'll be a no on this.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President.
Senator Cook.
Thank you. This is a big budget, and it's a big increase. And if you just went by the third-party analysts, you would be in agreement and say, yeah, this is lousy, don't vote for it. But the third-party analyst was a little bit misleading. If you look at the last 3 years, you would see that this budget did grow.
Senator, state your point.
Can't hear.
I think this is something, the Senate will go at ease. No, the answer is no.
So it's
just a generic statement.
just a generic statement.
It's the same thing as saying, I've heard or I've read, so I formulated an opinion. You're not quoting anybody.
Right.
Be overly restricted.
You're watching the Idaho Senate. Hardware and closed captioning for Idaho in Session is provided by the Idaho Legislature and Idaho Legislative Services Office. Additional funding is provided by the Idaho Public Television Endowment.
We'll see. Just keep my cool. It's true.
The Senate will be in order. The Senate is in the 13th order of business debating Senate Bill 1193. The President is going to take a moment here, and we started seeing this a little bit yesterday. When tension rises in the body, that's usually, in my experience, when we start debating the member and not the issue. And so I would just call that to everyone's attention as a nip it in the bud attempt, and let's debate the bill we have in front of us. Yes, there are third parties. Yes, there's tension. Yes, that's part. Creative tension is what makes this place run. So we get that. But when tensions rise, that's usually when we start debating the person and not the issue. In my not so short experience here. So debate is open. Senator Cook, you have the floor to debate 1193. Go ahead.
Thank you, President. Senators, as I was saying, the third-party analyst that has, and there's lots of them, and you all receive notices on your desk telling you how to vote and what they think. The third-party analysis on this is less than truthful. It talks about this budget.
And when we say is less than truthful, that's in your opinion, Senator. And so, that keeps us kind of between the guardrails, I believe. Okay? When we make assertions on constitutionality, etc., what you say and what others hear is that you're more truthful, or you're more constitutional, or you're more red-blooded, or whatever it is. It's when we get to that point is that we start debating each other. So, please continue.
Thank you. I do appreciate that.
All right.
I am willing to be tutored on this because I have a short time compared to yours, so thank you. So, in my opinion, as you read through the analysis, they talk about the increase of the budget. And absolutely it increased. If you go back the last 3 years, it shot up every year. Well, why did it? It's because we were consolidating. If you want to also look at the FTPs. The FTPs go skyrocket as well. It's because we were picking and choosing. We went after different agencies and says, okay, you have an IT department. We're going to take that and put it over here. And we're going to put it in the information technology services. And so it went away. And so your question might be, well, can I find the negative FTP over in that agency? Absolutely. You can find that. That information is available. And it has been talked about on this floor before when we talked about an agency that was consolidated. The ITS was consolidated over into the ITS department. You can see the addition of FTP and you can see the subtraction. You can also see the funds that followed those people. And so when I say, in my opinion, this is less truthful, I really mean it. It is not there. The budget did rise, but you've got to do more of your own homework. You've got to figure this stuff out. And that's why all of that information is available to you. It is not just JFAC. We are not the only ones that's privy to that. Everybody has access to that. You can look at it. You can get here at 6 o'clock in the morning with me, and I'll walk you through it. I'll show you where it's at. It's there. So, does the budget rise? Yes, it does. Does the FTP rise? Yes, it does. And it took it away from another agency. And so, Senators, I ask that you look at this and think about what we're doing. It was under a statute that this body and the body across the rotunda voted on and said, we want to consolidate ITS. We want to bring it together. This is in support of a statute. It's written in law. It's there. Same thing we did with human resources. We did that as well. And you'll see a budget spike in HR, I think it was last year, as we brought people across. Well, that's the reason why. So please consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further debate? Hearing none. Senator Bierke, you please stand and close the debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for the debate and the clarification. I appreciate it. And just for the body's edification, we are going to be moving a lot of budgets in succession. I think I've got 4 or 5 or 6 of them. There's a lot of information, but do you really want me to read everything? I can answer every question. It's provided for me here. There was a question that I will answer. It talks about what the senator over here from District 12 asked. So I will go through that. This budget line item was determined by multiple stakeholder groups, including the Department of Administration. Currently, ITS employees are spread across multiple buildings and are taking up office spaces that could be more effectively used by smaller agencies. This office space move effort will free up additional space for other stakeholder groups down the road and create more opportunities for effective collaboration among ITS employees. This new space on the Chinden campus that was not had not been previously occupied by the state. It needs provisioning and furnishing. ITS has outgrown current space in multiple buildings, floors, and temporary arrangements. This gets all employees in the same space for improved productivity and efficiencies. ITS pays lease rates for the space back to the state that owns the space. ITS has one more phase of consolidation, which might include ADFTP, that will require additional lease costs. This vacates space in buildings 4 and 6 on the Chinden campus, which will remain furnished and significantly ready for occupancy. Highly efficient move with just 1 month of overlapping lease cost ITS. And I'll stop there just to let you know that I was involved in something very similar on a city level. Consolidation of IT for just a city. If you could imagine, this is consolidation for the state of Idaho. There's going to be a lot of moving pieces here. There's going to be people going here, people going there, money going here, money going there. This is a huge endeavor. I remember we did it at a city level. We figured out that people were paying for licenses for software that we could have got an enterprise account and saved the city a lot of money. It took years just to get to the point where we understood where all the different software was, all the different hardware was, and to make that consolidation. And what was a big part of that consolidation was moving our IT services to a centralized location where they could all work together. It's called creating efficiencies. So, when you analyze this stuff, look at it from the perspective of this is an IT consolidation for the state of Idaho. It's not going to happen overnight. Is it going to be a little wonky? Yes. But this is a good budget, and I ask for your aye vote. Debate is closed.
Debate is closed. The question before the Senate is, shall Senate Bill 1193 pass the Senate? The Senate Secretary will call the roll.
Adams. Anthony. Burns. Bierke. Blaylock. Burtenshaw. Carlson. Cook. Den Hartog. Foreman. Galloway. Grove. Guthrie. Harris. Hart. Kaiser. Cole. Lakey. Lenny. Lent. Nichols. Okonowitz. Ricks. Ruckty. Semoroff. Shippey. Taylor. Taves. Van Orden. Ward Engelking. Wintrow. Waller. Woodward. Zito. Seiderfeld. Adams. Anthony. Carlson. Lenny. Nichols. Seiderfeld.
Mr. President,
Senator Zeiderfeld, 60 seconds to explain your vote.
Thank you. I just really want to point out, and I think this is just insane for me, that the office space, which is part of the moving cost, is $2.5 million. And this is going to be from on the same location. I think that's something that we should have dug in a little bit deeper. And again, this goes against my pledge of being over 1.2%. And so I'll be a no vote.
Senator Zeiderfeld votes no. The vote count shows 25 in favor with 10 against, a majority having voted in the affirmative. Senate Bill 1193 has passed the Senate. Hearing no correction of title, the title is approved and the bill be transmitted to the House.
Mr. President.
Senator Den Hartog.
Mr. President, I ask that House Bill 248 hold its place on the calendar for one legislative day.
Is there an objection? Hearing none, it is so ordered.
Mr. President.
Senator Bierke.
Burnt.
Burnt.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move to limit debate pursuant to Rule 37, subsection 2, that each senator is allowed to debate up to 90 seconds with no opportunity to debate a second time.
It's been moved and seconded. I believe this is a non-debatable motion and stands, yes, and since it limits debate, it requires 2/3 of the members present for passage. The Senate Secretary will call the roll. To restate the question, this would limit debate, or the time allowed for debate to 90 seconds per. A yes vote limits, a no vote does not. The Senate Secretary will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Did I state the question properly? Excuse me. It's to limit debate to 90 seconds with no with no ability to debate a second time.
That's correct, Mr. President. Thank you.
That's the question. A yes vote does it, and a no vote keeps it the way it is. The Senate Secretary will call the roll.
Adams. Anthony. Burnt. Bierke. Blaylock. Burntenshaw. Carlson. Cook. Den Hartog. Foreman. Galloway. Grow. Guthrie. Harris. Hart. Kaiser. Cole.
60 seconds.
It's not allowed in this one.
Nay.
Lakey. Lenny. Lind. Nichols. Okonowitz. Briggs. Bruckty. Samaroff. Shippey. Taylor. Taves. Van Orden. Ward King. Wintrow. Wooler. Woodward. Cito. Seiderveld. Carlson.
She's not in her seat. Senator Carlson. We have a motion before us to limit debate. How do you vote? Senator Carlson votes aye.
Okonowitz.
The vote count shows 24 in favor with 11 against, more than 2/3 having voted in the affirmative. The debate is limited to 90 seconds, one time. The Senate will have before for final consideration House Bill number 426. The Secretary will read the bill.
In the House of Representatives, House Bill 426 by Appropriations Committee, an act relating to the appropriation to the Office of the State Controller, appropriating additional monies to the Office of the State Controller for fiscal year 2026, reducing monies to the State Controller for fiscal year...
Mr. President,
Senator Bierke.
Mr. President, I ask for unanimous consent that House Bill 426 the reading of House Bill 426 be dispensed with the journal show that it has been read a third time at length, section by section, and placed before the Senate for final consideration.
Is there an objection? Hearing none, Senator Bierke, you have the floor for 90 seconds to open debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senators. House Bill 426 provides fiscal year 2026 enhancements to the State Controller. It brings the remaining costs of LUMA on budget, increasing transparency and accountability in operations. This appropriation to the State Controller brings remaining activities for LUMA on budget, providing additional accountability and transparency. These are costs that were formerly borne by the Continuous Appropriated Business Information Infrastructure Fund that will be paid from the general fund ongoing forward. The recommended fiscal year 2026 original appropriation is $40.47 million, or 40% less than the office fiscal year 2024 total of expenditures of $67,040,800, which included both appropriated and continuously appropriated funds. We talked a little bit about what it's like to have IT consolidation. This endeavor to provide this LUMA enterprise for this.
20 seconds.
What do you say? I'm sorry, Mr. President.
I don't know. I'm going to give, I'll do this. I'll give a 30-second warning. And I tried to give you a 20-second warning, and now I've taken 10 seconds of that. So you have 30 seconds to finish your opening debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. The budget is before you. I ask for your aye vote. Debate is open.
Is there further debate? Mr. Lenny.
Will the senator from District 5 yield to a question?
Senator Bierke, will you yield to a question?
Mr. President, I yield.
Senator yields.
Can you tell me more about the need or the request in this budget for a new communications manager?
Senator Bierke, you're off the clock. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I can go through those line items, but that communication manager is necessary as we move forward. As you can imagine, the endeavor that we have gone through to bring LUMA on board, and they've identified that there needs to be this position to continue bringing everybody up to speed for what the future of this program is going to hold here in the state.
Senator Lenny,
would the senator from 5 yield to a follow-up question?
Bierke, will you yield to another question?
Mr. President, I will yield.
Senator yields. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to know, does this office not already have someone doing this, a communications manager?
Mr. President, and Senator from, is it 15?
13.
13. No.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further debate? Senator Cole.
Mr. President, will the sponsor yield to a question?
Senator Bierke, will you yield to another question?
Mr. President, I yield.
The senator yields.
Thank you, Mr. President. The question is, does the agency currently have any vacancies of FTPs?
Senator Bierke.
Mr. President, and Senator from 20. Let me just go through some of the remainder of this information. That'll help you out here. I don't have that at my fingertips, but I can get that here shortly for you. It sounds like we're going to have a lot, Mr. President, it sounds like we're going to have quite a few questions about this. Can I use this time to offer additional information about?
I'm going to put the Senate at ease. Senator Burr, did your motion contemplate 90 seconds in the debate, but not in the open? Okay. Yeah. So I can do that.
You're watching the Idaho Senate. Hardware and closed captioning for Idaho in Session is provided by the Idaho Legislature and Idaho Legislative Services Office. Additional funding is provided by the Idaho Public Television.
Lori.
You're watching the Idaho Senate.
Senators, I know we're very busy on the floor today, but while we're at ease, I do have some friends here, the Krauses, Stuart, and everybody. Thank you for being here from Rupert, Idaho. Just wanted to say that.
The Senate will be in order. Without objection, we'll modify my understanding of the motion to limit debate. Without objection from the body, that will be for debate, not the open, not the closing. Is there an objection to that interpretation?
I have a question. I just have a question. An inquiry.
Okay, place your inquiry.
What does the rule, the senator from 21 cited a rule, and I'm just curious what that rule says.
The rule is, and you can look it up and read it yourself, it's Rule 37, and it's item 2. Those are a series of non-debatable motions, and limiting debate is one of them.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah. Hearing no objection, then we'll be under a debate limit, but not a opening or a closing limit. And we're debating House Bill 426. Sarah Cole.
Yes, Mr. President. I'd like to continue my line of questioning.
Senator Bierke, do you continue to yield?
Mr. President, I will answer the first line of inquiry, and then I will yield no more. There's 9 vacant positions.
So I'll take that as a yes, and we'll take the questions one at a time. Senator Cole.
Thank you, Mr. President. The question was, how many vacancies does that agency currently have? And if so, if there are vacancies, why are we not just reutilizing those?
Senator Bierke.
Mr. President, those vacancies are for positions that they can't fill. If you can imagine the size of an agency of OITS, there's job classifications, and they're not all kind of synonymous. So they have 9 unrelated vacancies that they haven't filled that this is not the position that we're talking about here.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President, to debate the bill.
Sarah Cole, this is where the 90 seconds applies.
Roger that. I'll be quick. Thank you, sir. So the problem with leaving vacancies in an agency is those vacancies continue to be funded. So if an agency has 100 positions and they're only filling 90 of them, I don't see the utility of granting that agency 105 open positions when we're just, when we could just reutilize 5 positions that are already available. This is a classic case of growing the government beyond the need and scope. So I'll be a no on this.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President,
Senator Lenny.
to debate the bill for
You have the
90
floor.
seconds. Thank you, Mr. President. The reason I asked about the communications manager on line 5 here for 126,000 is because the way I look at it, I realize there's things we need to do with Luma and that are probably necessary, which leads me to wonder why they're in an enhancement budget. But I think the job of communication probably should fall under the agency chief's umbrella. So the fact that we're hiring another person for it doesn't make any sense to me. And this is a 60.4% increase for those watching at home, 60.4 increase for an add-on budget. So I'm going to be a no on this, Mr. President.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President,
Senator Ward Ingle-King.
to debate in favor.
You have the floor, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President. This communication manager, I think, is critical. We didn't have a very good rollout of Luma. There were a lot of people used to their old system. They wanted to kind of stick with that. We had a lot of it was done via Zoom. And this person will make sure that each agency is getting the training and the information they need to be successful moving forward with Luma.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President.
Senator Grow.
Yeah, thank you. I have additional information on the vacancies. They were fully, as of just a couple of days ago, all of those positions were filled. And just in the last couple of days, 3 became open. So that should answer that question. In regards to the communication manager, it goes on to talk in detail about some of the things that they'll be doing. So this is a different person, obviously. And they'll be dealing with the Town Hall, Idaho, which is something that makes everybody in the state available with information on public meetings across the state, Transparent Idaho, and the state and local financial operational information, Idaho Insights, an intergovernmental criminal justice data system, local government entities, central registry, which compiles required financial reporting by local governments. So I'll say that. Now, again, on the total amount that was raised here, there was a bill a couple of years ago when Luma was put into place that put into dedicated funds that has been funding Luma up to this point in time. And so what's happening now, those funds have run out. The same people that were running Luma there under the dedicated fund are the people that are running it here under the general fund. So it's not an increase of folks. It's folks that were already there being funded by a dedicated fund. That fund that we appropriated is now expired, and now they're in the general fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further debate? Hearing none. Senator Bierke, you're recognized to close the debate.
Thank you, Mr. President and senators, for the lively debate. My apologies. 90 seconds was not what I needed for the opening debate on this, and I did a disservice to this budget. And I'm glad
that was my bad.
No offense, Mr. President. Yeah, this is pretty complicated. Mr. President, there's a lot of information here that I could talk about, but I did seek some information about Luma and kind of what we achieved as a state. Is it okay for me to read an email that I got from the deputy of the state controller's office regarding that rollout?
Having cited the source, Senator, you may read.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bear with me. Mr. President and senators, Let me just go here. This is always a little clunky. We have a certain amount of criticism. You know, people talk about the rollout. And I won't go into great detail about a similar experience that I've had going into a telestaff program for doing our hiring in an organization I worked for. It was about a 2-year venture. Started out pretty ugly, where the person responsible for it had his picture on every dartboard. And at the end of that 2-year period, he was our hero. You know, so these are typically how these things go. But when you compare what we've done and accomplished here with other states, and let me just read this. Other states have started and had failures or partially implemented. Idaho is leading the way in this public sector space. For example, Nevada and Washington started at the same time as Idaho did in 2019. Nevada has doubled their budget and only implemented the financial module, and Washington has not gone live with anything yet. Plan is to go live with financial possibility in 2027, and their budget is now approaching 4 times their original estimate. Idaho came in under budget for the LUMA project. We are the first state in the nation to go live with all 5 modules: finance, procurement, budget, HR, and payroll in a multi-tenant cloud solution. These are massive projects and take time to smooth out. May I also add one more comment about the scope and magnitude of Idaho's effort. We are truly special in our accomplishment. Yes, implementation was difficult, but we are successful overall in making great progress on efficiencies. This was truly a statewide effort with members of SCO, DHR, DFM, Department of Admin, LSO, and many others. This was not a simple lift and shift, such as replacing your laptop or iPhone. Idaho pulled in over 40 unique segmented systems across the state to fully integrate one system. Where our legacy systems were over 30 years old and importing disparate system data across the state, we now have a fully integrated system that includes procurement, financial budget, human resources, payroll, and time management. We have standardized business practices and enabled key decision makers access to more data than ever before. Standardized, easily accessible, and reportable. Mr. President and Senators, I remember my first SCO luncheon with Controller Wolf, and I remember how enthusiastic he was about this LUMA project. And we had lunch, and he would talk and talk and talk about how great this is going to be for Idaho. And I remember seeing that smile on his face, sitting there going, this is really cool. Next year after that, I didn't seem to see that same smile. I saw a look of concern. It was kind of a juxtaposition. Being new here, but having experience in this realm, I felt what he must be feeling. But the most important part of me telling you that is that we still have Controller Wolf. He's here, still fighting, making sure that this program is rolled out appropriately, rolling up his sleeves, becoming humbled, unfortunately, by maybe some of the ways things are perceived and how they might have rolled out. But he hasn't left the sinking ship, because I contend it's not sinking. Like every venture worth engaging in, these things take time. And I think this is a good budget. If you think about starting all over again, like some of those other states, we are going to be way in the hole, not only in what we're trying to accomplish, but also financially. And with that, debate is closed.
Debate is closed. The question before the Senate is, shall House Bill number 426 pass the Senate? The Secretary will call the roll.
Adams, Anthony, Burnt, Bierke, Blaylock, Burtonshaw, Carlson, Cook, Den Hartog, Foreman, Galloway, Grove, Guthrie, Harris, Hart, Kaiser, Cole, Lakey, Lenny, Lent, Nichols, Okonowitz, Ricks, Ructi, Semwarov, Shippey, Taylor, Taves, Van Orden, King, Wintrow, Waller, Woodward, Cito, Seiderveld, Anthem, Burnt, Carlson, Guthrie, Lenny, Shippey,
The vote count shows 23 in favor with 12 against, a majority having voted in the affirmative. House Bill number 426 has passed the Senate. Hearing no correction to title, the title is approved. The bill will be returned to the House. The Senate will now have before for final consideration House Bill number 427. The Secretary will read the bill.
In the House of Representatives, House Bill 427 by Appropriations Committee, an act relating to the appropriation to the Military Division and the Department of Health and Welfare, appropriating additional monies to the Military Division for fiscal year 2026, increasing the number of authorized...
President.
Senator Bierke.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that further reading of House Bill 427 be dispensed with, and the journal show it has been read a third time at length, section by section, and placed before the Senate for final consideration.
Is there an objection?
Mr. President, I object.
The Secretary may read the bill.
In the House of Representatives, House Bill 427 by Appropriations Committee, an act relating to the appropriation to the Military Division and the Department of Health and Welfare, appropriating additional monies to the Military Division for fiscal year 2026, increasing the number of authorized full-time equivalent positions, reducing the appropriation to the Department of Health and Welfare for the Public Health Service Division for fiscal year 2026, reducing the number of authorized full-time equivalent positions, appropriating additional monies to the Department of Health and Welfare for the Public Health Service Division for fiscal year 2026, declaring an emergency and providing an effective date, be it enacted by the legislature of the state of Idaho. Section 1. In addition to any other appropriation provided by law, there is hereby appropriated to the Military Division the following amounts to be expended according to the designated programs and expense classes from the listed funds from a period of July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2026. 1. Military management from Emergency Medical Services Fund. For personnel costs, $250,000. For operating expenditures, none. For trustee benefit payments, none. Total, $250,000. 2. Emergency medical services from General Fund, $71,400. For overrating expenditures, $145,000. For trustee and benefit payments, none. Total, $216,400. Emergency medical services fund, $2,338,400. For operating expenditures, $1,156,000. For trustee benefit payments, none. Total, $3,494,400. Emergency medical services number 3 fund. For personnel costs, none. For operating expenditures, none. For trustee and benefit payments, $1,700,000. Total, $1,700,000. TSC registry fund, $130,000 for personnel costs, $327,000 for operating expenditures, none for trustee benefit payments. Total, $457,000. Miscellaneous revenue fund, $813,700 for personnel costs, $551,400 for operating expenditures, none for trustee benefit payments. Total, $1,365,100. Federal grant fund for personnel costs, $60,000 for operating expenditures, $120,000 for trustee and benefit payments, 0. Total, $180,000. Total for personnel costs, $3,413,500. For operating expenditures, $2,299,400. For trustee benefit payments, $1,700,000. Total, $7,412.900. Grand total for personnel costs, $3,663,500. For operating expenditures, $2,299,400. For trustee and benefit payments, $1,700,000. Total, $7,662,900. Section 2, FTP authorization. In addition to any other authorization provided by law, the full-time equivalent position authorization provided to the military division is hereby increased by 33 84/100ths for the period of July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. Section 3, notwithstanding any other provision of law to the contrary, the appropriation made to the Department of Health and Welfare for the Public Health Service Division is hereby reduced to the following amounts for the designated program and expense classes from the listed funds for the period of July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. Emergency medical services from Cooperative Welfare General Fund. For personnel costs, none. For operating expenditures, none. For trustee and benefit payments, none. Total, $0. Emergency Medical Services Fund, $75,100 for personnel costs. For operating expenditures, $85,000. For trustee and benefit payments, none. Total, $160,100. Emergency Medical Services Fund. For personnel costs, $2,178,100. For operating expenditures, $1,400,200. For trustee benefit payments, none. Total, $3,578,300. Emergency Medical Services 3 Fund. For personnel costs, $0. For operating expenditures, none. For trustee benefit payments, $1,700,000. Total, $1,700,000. TSC Registry Fund. For personnel costs, $128,300. For operating expenditures, $327,000. For trustee benefit payments, $0. Total, $455,300. Cooperative Welfare Dedicated Fund. $817,200 for personnel costs, $551,400 for operating expenditures. For trustee benefit payments, none. Total, $1,368,600.
Mr. President, I ask the Senate go at ease.
The Senate will be at ease. The Senate will be in order.
Mr. President,
Senator Ben Hartog.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to send in advance the 15th order of business.
Without objection, the Senate will advance to the 15th order of business, miscellaneous business. The Senate's at the 15th order.
Mr. President, I move the Senate adjourn until the hour of 9:30 a.m. Monday, March 31st.
Mr. President, I second the motion.
You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We'll see you next Monday at 9:30.